Can you hear them? If you listen closely on certain nights, you can still hear the whispers of the dead. Voices carried by the wind, calling from the other side of the veil. Japan is a land of breathtaking beauty, but beneath that beauty lies something older and darker. In quiet shrines and forgotten forests, they say the dead still walk, bound by vengeance, sorrow, or the weight of ancient sins. For centuries, travelers have whispered of spirits that linger where tragedy once struck, of demons that wear human faces, of ghosts whose love defied the grave. Join me as we open the gates between worlds to witness 9 tales told in 3 chapters, drawn from the haunted heart of Japan. Tales of monsters, legends, and restless souls that refuse to fade. These are not stories meant to comfort. They are warnings, remembered in the flicker of firelight. Our journey begins with the darkest of them all, Japan's 3 great evil yokai. In the long history of Japan, countless spirits have haunted the land. But 3 stand apart, so feared, so infamous that they are remembered not as stories but as curses. Come with me into the shadows of the past as we uncover Japan's 3 greatest evils. The Nihon Sandai Aku Yokai. Before we begin, just a quick word about yokai, for anyone new to Japanese folklore. In Japanese tradition, yokai are supernatural beings. Some are mischievous tricksters, others benevolent guardians, but many are feared as dangerous spirits or monsters. They take countless forms: animals, ghosts, demons, even objects given life. Oni, for example, are among the most feared yokai. They are often depicted with horns, wild hair, and tiger skin loincloths, carrying massive iron clubs. They are symbols of violence and destruction, and people believed Oni lurked in remote mountains, waiting to prey upon the unlucky traveler. And in the Heian period, around the 10th to 12th centuries, belief in yokai was woven into everyday life. Strange illness, disaster, or misfortune might be blamed on unseen spirits. Among these countless tales, 3 figures have been remembered, not just as troublesome, but as truly evil. The 3 great evil yokai of Japan. Our first tale begins with a monster who reigned from the mountains, a demon so fierce that even in death his severed head still tried to kill. High in the mountains north of Kyoto during the Heian era, there lived a creature unlike any other. His name was Shutendoji, the drunken boy. He was an Oni, one of the most fearsome types of yokai, horned demons known for their strength, cruelty, and insatiable appetites. From his fortress on Mount Oi, Shutendoji and his band of demons descended upon the capital. They raided villages, abducted women, and feasted in grotesque revels that left Kyoto trembling. The image of the Oni's banquet became a symbol of everything terrifying in the wilderness. Violence, gluttony, and lust beyond human control. The court called upon Minamoto no Raiko and his loyal warriors. Disguised as mountain priests, they infiltrated Shutendoji's lair with enchanted sake, gifted by the gods. The Oni drank deeply until his body faltered, then Raiko and his men struck. Even as his head was severed, Shutendoji fought on, his jaws clamping down on Raiko's helmet so fiercely that only divine protection saved him. The monstrous head was carried back to Kyoto as proof of victory, yet it was said to still glare and gnash its teeth, a trophy that never truly rested. To this day, Mount Oe in Kyoto Prefecture is remembered as his lair, dotted with shrines and markers said to honor the battle where the Demon King was brought down. Travelers who climb its slopes still hear echoes of the old tales, reminders of when Oni ruled the mountains. Shutendoji embodies society's fear of chaos beyond the city walls, the violence, gluttony, and lust that no fortress could fully keep away. But if brute force terrified the capital, an even darker fear crept into the emperor's own palace. A courtesan so beautiful she nearly brought down the throne itself. At the height of the Heian court, when elegance and poetry masked rivalries and intrigue, there appeared a woman of breathtaking beauty. Her name was Tamamo no Mai. Her skin was said to glow like the moon. Her wit dazzled the most learned scholars, and her voice could charm even the sternest monk. She quickly rose in favor, becoming the beloved companion of Emperor Toba. But the splendor concealed something sinister. Not long after Tamamo arrived at court, the emperor fell gravely ill. His condition worsened despite prayers, offerings, and the finest physicians. Whispers spread. Could this mysterious courtesan be the cause? When diviners were summoned, the truth was revealed. Tamamo no Mai was no woman at all, but a kitsune, a fox spirit. Worse still, she was said to be a nine-tailed fox, the most dangerous of all. In Japanese folklore, foxes were known to shapeshift into human form, often as beguiling women. As they aged and grew wiser, they gained more tails, each one a mark of greater power. A fox with 9 tails was said to be nearly divine, capable of toppling kings and empires. Legends told that this same fox spirit had traveled across Asia, bringing ruin wherever she went. First in India, then in China, and finally in Japan. Exposed, Tamamo fled the palace. The emperor's guards pursued her across the countryside until at last she was cornered in the plains of Nasu. There, the archers of the court released their arrows. Her disguise fell away and her true form emerged. A dazzling white fox with 9 sweeping tails. With a final cry, she was struck down. But her malice did not end with her death. From her body was born the Seshoseki, the killing stone. For centuries, travelers feared to go near it, for it was said that anyone who touched the stone would die instantly. Priests tried to break its curse, yet still the story lingered. The fox spirit's hatred remained bound in stone, waiting for another chance to escape. The stone itself is real, the Seshoseki in Nasu. For centuries, its sulfurous gases gave weight to the legend, and even today it is enshrined, a place where travelers still whisper of the 9-tailed fox. When the stone split in 2022, many joked uneasily that Tamamo no Mai's spirit had been released once more. If Shuten Doji represented fear of brute chaos, Tamamo no Mai revealed a subtler terror, the corruption of power from within. Her beauty and intelligence were weapons as deadly as any blade, and her story warned that even the highest court was not safe from deception. And then, there was the emperor who lost everything, whose fury in death was said to curse the nation for centuries to come. Unlike Shuten Doji or Tamamo no Mai, the third of Japan's great evils was no beast in disguise, but a man who once sat upon the chrysanthemum throne. His name was Sutoku, the 75th emperor of Japan. Born in 1119, Sutoku reigned during a turbulent age. Court politics were dominated by the powerful Fujiwara clan and the rise of the samurai. When Emperor Sutoku was forced to abdicate in favor of his younger brother, resentment grew. In 1156, his allies rallied to restore him, sparking the Hogan Rebellion. But the attempt failed. Sutoku's forces were defeated, and the deposed emperor was sent into exile on the remote island of Sanuki, far from the capital he once ruled. There, stripped of power, Sutoku turned to religion. He spent his days copying Buddhist sutras, praying that his soul might be redeemed. But legend says that when he sent these sacred texts back to Kyoto, the court, fearing his spirit, refused to accept them. Enraged, Sutoku's heart hardened. He vowed vengeance, declaring that instead of a Buddha, he would become a great Tengu, a demon to torment those who had betrayed him. In 1164, Sutoku died in exile, but his death was only the beginning. Soon after, disasters swept the land, famines, plagues, and wars that tore Japan apart. The people whispered that the ghost of Sutoku was responsible, his fury lingering as a Goryo, a vengeful spirit of the dead. Some claimed he transformed into a monstrous tengu, roaming the skies to spread unrest. In Japanese culture, Goryo were feared as the restless dead who could bring calamity upon the living. To appease them, the court developed elaborate pacification rites, offering prayers, rituals, and shrines. Sutoku was remembered alongside Sugawara no Michizane and Taira no Masakado as one of the three great vengeful spirits of Japan, figures whose wrath shaped history long after their deaths. For centuries afterward, Sutoku's name was invoked whenever calamity struck. Even later emperors feared his curse, offering rituals and prayers to calm his fury. In time, shrines were built to honor him, not as a sovereign, but as a restless spirit who demanded reverence lest he bring further ruin. The most famous of these is Shiramine Shrine in Kyoto, where Sutoku is still venerated, a reminder that even emperors could linger as Goryo, vengeful ghosts long after death. Sutoku's story stands apart from the others. Shutendoji was an oni, a demon of the mountains. Tamamo no Mai was a kitsune, a trickster fox spirit. But Sutoku was human, an emperor who, wronged and forgotten, became a curse upon the nation itself. His tale embodies the fear that injustice breeds not peace, but vengeance that even death cannot silence. A soul filled with rage. A demon's appetite, a fox's deception, an emperor's wrath. Together, these shadows of the past became Japan's three greatest evils. Their stories, whispered through the centuries, reflect the deepest fears of a people: the terror of chaos, the danger of corruption, and the curse of vengeance. Even today, the names of Shutendoji, Tamamo no Mai, and Emperor Sutoku echo in Japan's folklore as warnings from history itself. But even the most terrifying demons pale beside the horrors born of human desire. The yokai taught us to fear the unknown. Yet the next tales reveal what happens when darkness takes root in the living heart. In old Japan, faith and fear walked side by side. Priests prayed for the hungry dead, lovers bound their souls beyond the grave, and jealousy could summon spirits more dreadful than any beast. These are not creatures of myth, but people whose choices echoed into eternity. Their sins, their sorrow, their love, all left marks that time could not erase. What happens when the line between the living and the dead begins to blur? Stay close, and you'll find out. Step with me into haunted Japan as we explore three dark legends. A priest cursed to feast on the dead, a jealous spirit born from the living, and a love with a secret so strange it's echoed for centuries. Not all ghosts are born from death. Some rise from greed, some from jealousy, and some from love that refuses to fade. In Japanese folklore, ghosts are more than fleeting apparitions. They embody emotions so powerful that they tear through the veil of life and death. The word yurei means a spirit bound to the world, often by rage, sorrow, or desire. But not all spirits wait until death to appear. Some become ikiryo, living ghosts born from jealousy or hatred so fierce it escapes the body. These stories, whispered for centuries in temples, courts, and summer gatherings, remind us that the line between the living and the dead is far thinner than we imagine. And they were not just meant to frighten, they were warnings, cautionary tales about the consequences of unchecked desire, envy, or greed. In the mountains of Mino province, a traveling priest named Muso sought shelter for the night. He found only a lonely hermitage, where an aged priest turned him away with bitter words, sending him down to a nearby village. There, Muso was welcomed into the headman's house, yet quickly learned the village was in mourning. A man had died, and it was their custom to leave corpses unattended at night. Strange things happened in the dark, they warned, things so terrible that none dared witness them twice. Muso, unafraid, offered to perform rites and keep vigil. The room was silent except for the low murmur of his chanting. The single candle flame flickered against the walls, bending shadows into grotesque shapes. Hours passed, and then he heard it. Slow, dragging footsteps outside, followed by the sound of harsh, labored breathing. A dreadful shape appeared, hulking, shadowy, with eyes that burned like coals. Its stench was foul, like rotting flesh mingled with smoke. Its fingers, long and clawed, reached for the corpse with unnatural hunger. Frozen in terror, Muso could only watch as it seized the body, devoured it, and lapped up the offerings besides. The sound of gnashing teeth echoed in the darkness. When dawn broke, the villagers returned. They were not surprised. The same horror had struck before. For them, it was routine, a curse they had come to accept. Determined to uncover the truth, Muso returned to the hermitage on the hill. This time, the old priest confessed. He was no man at all, but a Jikininki, a corpse-eating spirit, cursed for his greed as a priest in life. Because he had performed rituals not from faith, but from lust for wealth and fine clothing, he was reborn to forever desecrate the dead. He begged Muso for prayers to end his torment. But as his words faded, so too did the hermitage. Muso found himself alone on the hillside, kneeling before a moss-covered tomb. In Buddhism, karma can stretch beyond death itself, shaping the very form of one's rebirth. The Jikininki stands as proof that greed in life may condemn a soul to feast upon the dead. But if greed could create such a monster, what horrors might jealousy unleash? In the twilight courts of Heian, Japan, where poetry and elegance masked rivalries sharper than swords, Lady Rokujo was admired for her grace. Once the consort of a crown prince, she later gave her heart to the shining Genji. Yet Genji's love was restless. Again and again he left her for younger, fairer women. Humiliation at court deepened her wounds, and jealousy festered into something darker. Some whispered that her rage left her body at night, roaming the palace unseen. Servants whispered that whenever Genji favored another, a chill swept through the corridors, candles guttered, and unseen hands brushed the sleeves of rivals. Soon, strange afflictions struck Genji's lovers. His wife, Lady Aoi, fell ill with fevers and visions of a shadow pressing upon her chest. During an exorcism, drums pounded, monks chanted, and incense thickened the air. The room trembled as if the unseen world pressed close. Aoi's body convulsed, and from the smoke a face emerged, distorted yet recognizable. It was Lady Rokujo. Even Genji's secret lover Yugao was not spared. One night, a vengeful apparition hovered over her bed. By morning, she was dead. And all the while, Lady Rokujo still lived, dignified, restrained, horrified by whispers that her own soul was drifting free. Ashamed, she withdrew from court life, retreating to the sacred Ise shrine. But even in death, her jealousy endured. Her restless ghost haunted Genji's household, tormenting his beloved Lady Murasaki and the other women of his villa. Doors rattled at night, cold hands touched sleeping courtiers, and the sound of sobbing filled empty rooms. Only after her daughter performed solemn rites did her spirit finally find peace. Lady Rokujo's fate became the most famous tale of an Ikirio, a living spirit. She was no demon but a woman undone by passion so fierce it escaped her body. But jealousy is not the only force that binds a soul. Sometimes love itself refuses to let go. And when love crosses the boundary between life and death, it can become the deadliest curse of all. In Old Edo, during the Festival of the Dead, lanterns glowed outside every home to guide ancestral spirits back to visit the living. Families set food on shelves for departed loved ones, and the night air shimmered with the warmth of reunion. On such a night, a lonely samurai named Hagiwara Shinzaburo sat in his garden, praying for the soul of a lost love, Tsuyu, whose name meant morning dew. She had died young, believing herself abandoned. Her maid Yoni had died soon after, from grief. As the moon climbed high, Shinzaburo heard it, the clatter of wooden geta sandals on the road, the rhythmic clip-clopping drawing nearer. Two women appeared at his gate. One carried a lantern painted with peonies. The other, dressed in a robe of autumn blossoms, was Tsuyu. Through tears, they told him they had been deceived, that they were told he had died. Shinzaburo, astonished, said the same lie had been told to him. Their joy was overwhelming. That night, Tsuyu entered his house, and before dawn they were lovers again. Night after night she returned, always with her servant Yoni and the peony lantern, always leaving at sunrise. His neighbors whispered of music and laughter that filled his home. But one night, his servant Tomozo spied through a crack in the door. What he saw chilled his blood. Beneath the mosquito net, Shinzaburo embraced not a living woman but a skeleton, her fleshless fingers clattering against his skin. Yone turned her hollow eyes toward the spying servant, and with a gasp he fled. But fear alone does not keep the dead at bay, and soon Yone would return, not to Shinzaburo but to Tomozo himself. Tomozo sought counsel from learned men. They armed Shinzaburo with charms. Holy sutras pasted over the doors, a golden Buddha worn upon his chest, sacred words to ward off the dead. When Tsuyu returned, her weeping voice called from outside. "Why have you shut me out? Has your love changed so soon?" She circled the house, footsteps dragging, geta echoing against the night. At last, her voice faded into silence. But ghosts are patient, and servants are weak. Yone came to Tomozo again and again, demanding he betray his master. At last, tormented to the edge of sanity and cowed by fear, he tore away the charms, buried the sutra, and even stole the Buddha from his master's chest. That night, the peony lantern glowed once more. Its pale light painted the walls with trembling shadows. Tsuyu's whisper was soft as silk, promising eternal devotion. Shinzaburo trembled, torn between terror and longing, but in the end, love won. He opened his arms. When dawn came, the neighbors entered a silent house. Beneath the mosquito net lay Shinzaburo's body, lifeless, clinging still to the bones of morning dew. The smell of old incense lingered in the air, though no candles burned. The tale of the peony lantern spread through Edo, performed in plays and whispered in summer gatherings of Kaiden, ghost stories told in the dark of midsummer nights. It endures as a warning that even love, the purest of bonds, can become a curse when it crosses the boundary of life and death. From the corpse-eating priest, to the jealous noblewoman, to the lover who returned from the grave, these are haunted Japan's darkest legends. They remind us that greed, envy, and even love can outlast the flesh, and that the most terrifying spirits are born not from death, but from the depths of the human heart. But what happens to those who cannot let go? When grief turns to obsession, and love refuses to die, the soul lingers, neither living nor dead. The legends we've seen were bound by fate, their sins carved into memory. Yet the stories that follow are bound by longing, by hearts too heavy to rest. In Japan, such spirits are known as Yurei, the ghosts of the sorrowful and betrayed. They wander by moonlight, drawn to the places and people they cannot forget. Some seek vengeance, others forgiveness, but all remind us that love and loss are never truly buried.
A woman scorned, her face twisted in agony, forever haunting the man who betrayed her. A servant, falsely accused, cast into a well, her sorrowful whispers echoing through the night, and a bride waiting endlessly in the snow for the love that never returned. These are the whispers of Japan's most tragic spirits, but among the countless stories of vengeance and sorrow, one remains untold. Until now. The world of the living and the world of the dead. In Japanese folklore, the two are not so far apart. When a soul departs, it is believed to journey into the afterlife, but some spirits never leave. These are the Yurei, restless ghosts unable to pass on due to rage, sorrow, or unfinished business. Rooted in Shinto and Buddhist beliefs, Yurei appear as pale figures dressed in white funeral robes, their long black hair falling over sorrowful or vengeful faces. Unlike fleeting spirits, they linger. They remain bound to the place of their suffering, forever repeating their grief. Some are vengeful, returning to torment those who wronged them. These are the onryo, horrifying and dangerous. Others are merely trapped, repeating their last moments, whispering their sorrow into the wind. But every tale has one thing in common. Once a Yurei appears, it does not leave until its suffering is acknowledged or avenged. Today I will tell you two classical and revered Yurei tales passed down through the ages in Japanese folklore, and one that has remained obscured until now. Our first story recounts events that took place centuries ago in the Yotsuya district of Edo that continue to echo in modern Tokyo today. Oiwa was the loyal and devoted wife of a ronin. She loved her husband, Yemon, with all her heart, but his heart had turned elsewhere. Yemon wished to marry another, a woman of wealth named Ume. He was driven by greed and a desire to rise in station. But there was a problem. Ume believed she was not as beautiful as Oiwa, and Oiwa was in the way. And so she poisoned her, mixing a diabolical substance into her face cream to destroy her beauty. Although the poison did not kill her, it disfigured her face, warping it into something unrecognizable. Her once gentle features twisted, her eye drooping, her skin melting like wax. When she saw herself in a mirror, she tried to comb her hair over her face to hide the horrible disfigurement. But to her shock and horror, her once beautiful hair came out in bloody patches and fell onto the floor. Overcome with pain and betrayal, she died in horrific agony, her throat pierced by a razor-sharp blade. With her last gurgling breaths, she cursed her husband's name. But death was not the end. Overjoyed at the death of his wife, Yemon swiftly married Ume. That very night, Yemon began to see Oiwa. Her reflection loomed in lanterns, her single bloodshot eye staring back at him. Her whispers crawled into his ears, haunting his dreams, twisting his sanity. Oiwa had become Onryo, a Yurei animated by vengeance. Her burning passion for revenge had bridged the void between earth and the spirit world. As the weeks passed, relentlessly Oiwa tormented her husband, until one night, waking in a fit of terror, he drew his blade and struck at her image, only to find that tragically he had murdered his new bride instead. Driven mad with shame and fear, he fled to the mountains, trying to escape the vengeful Oiwa. Sadly, for the unfortunate Ronin, there was no escape. No longer able to separate dream from reality, he took his own life. Even now, it is said, Oiwa's face appears in reflections, waiting, watching, haunting those who dare betray a lover's trust. Sometimes, as the wind howls outside, a voice seems to whisper in the dark, waiting, longing. But for what? Turning the page, we come to the classic legend of Okiku. In the grand halls of the White Heron Castle in Himeji, a servant girl named Okiku worked tirelessly, washing dishes in the kitchens. She was known for her beauty, her grace, and for catching the eye of her master, a samurai of the court. But Okiku was not his to take. The samurai, infatuated, continued to stalk her, but at every advance she rejected him. Finally, growing impatient, he devised a cruel trick to ensnare her. He would blackmail her until she would be forced to become his lover. The samurai hid one of 10 priceless plates belonging to the lord of the manor, and falsely accused Okiku of breaking it, a crime punishable by death. Though she pleaded her innocence, he did not listen. In a frenzy, Okiku ran to the cupboard where the plates were stored. She counted the plates over and over, frantic and consumed with worry, but the missing plate was not to be found. It was then her master sprung his trap. He offered to overlook her crime if she would finally submit and become his lover. Still, she rejected him. Enraged, the obsessed samurai had her bound and dragged to the well. There he suspended her over the cold, dark pit, torturing her and demanding that she become his mistress. She suffered in innocence, refusing until, no longer able to control his fury, he slashed her with his sword and dropped her frail body into the void. From that night on, the whispers began. Ichi, ni, san. Every night, the sound of counting filled the halls, a ghostly voice moving through the darkness like a cold draught. Shichi, hachi, kyu. But it never reached 10. The samurai, unable to cope with the terrifying whispers of the vengeful Yurei, fled his home, leaving the spirit of Okiku forever counting, searching for the plate that was never broken. Even today it is said that if you count aloud to 9 near a well, Okiku's voice will whisper the final number. And sometimes, if the wind is just right, a second whisper follows, one that does not count, but calls a name. These have been tales that were remembered. What about the ones forgotten? A name, lost to time, a shrine abandoned, a story waiting to be told. We now come to a story long forgotten and left untold. In a village nestled deep in the mountains, there lived a woman named Chiyo. She was young, hopeful, and in love with a traveling merchant. One summer day, as he prepared to continue on his journey, he had promised her. "Wait for me," he said. "Before the first snow I will return." And so she waited, sitting near a small shrine by the road. Daily she watched for any sign of her beloved. As summer gave way to fall and fall waned toward winter, his words echoed in her mind like a chant. "Before the first snow I will return." Every day she would go to the shrine, hoping to catch the first glimpse of her beloved returning, but each time the road seemed empty. The faces she saw were strangers, and each one who passed stole a little more of her hope. "Have you seen him?" she asked a passing merchant. He did not stop. Another came, and she asked again, but his steps quickened. With each passing day, her hope gradually twisted into resentment. How could these travelers pass by so freely, uncaring, without a thought to her longing and suffering? Doubts and feelings of abandonment weighed heavy on her spirit as she sat alone by the roadside. A smouldering anger began to rise, slowly overtaking her mind. Why had he not returned? The echoes of her lover's promise faded and were replaced by thoughts of vengeance. If he does not return, let all who pass suffer as I have suffered. Let them know what it is to wait forever. One night Chiyo did not wake. The villagers found her frozen in a blanket of the first snow, lips parted as if whispering into the wind. Now, travelers who pass near the shrine hear a voice on the wind, asking, "Have you seen him?" But if you answer, misfortune will follow. And if you are a merchant, one of those who journey far and return late, you will not return at all.
The Yurei still haunt Japan, though the bustle of the modern world has made their voices harder to hear. Yet on quiet summer nights, when the wind stirs and lanterns flicker, their stories return, reminding us that the past never truly rests. From the cursed yokai, to the darkest legends, to the spirits who refuse to fade. We've walked through 9 echoes of Japan's haunted heart. If one of these tales stayed with you, tell us in the comments below. Which story lingered after the lanterns went out? To journey further into the myths and spirits of the East, visit our Asian folklore playlist, where more stories await. Like this video, and subscribe to Epic Folklore for more legends from the shadows of time. Thank you for joining us on this journey through haunted Japan. Until next time.